The unexpected resistance. The massive Krellian warship Dominator's Pride hung in space like a steel mountain, its hull bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Admiral Zexstar stood on the bridge, his 6 arms crossed in satisfaction as he watched the tactical display. Before him lay the human colony of Kepler 442b, a small world on the edge of what these primitive creatures called their territory. "Sir," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Crix, "the human settlement is responding to our demands for surrender." Zexstar's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his species. The Krellian Dominion had conquered 47 star systems in the last century, and each victory had been easier than the last. These humans would be no different. "Put them through," he ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a middle-aged human male in a simple blue uniform. The man's dark eyes held no fear, only calm determination. "This is Captain Marcus, Chun of the Kepler Colonial Defense Force. You are in violation of the Outer Rim Accords. Withdraw immediately." Zexstar's laughter echoed through the bridge. "Colonial Defense Force? You dare threaten the might of the Krellian Dominion with a handful of mining ships and cargo haulers?" Marcus's expression didn't change. "I'm not threatening you. I'm warning you. Leave now, and no one has to die today. How many ships do you have, human?" Zexstar asked, genuinely curious about this creature's delusion. "Enough," Marcus replied simply. The Admiral's tactical officer, Major Thek, approached with a datapad. "Sir, our sensors detect approximately 30 human vessels. Small craft, mostly converted civilian ships. Nothing that poses a threat to our battle fleet." Zexstar nodded. His force consisted of 200 of the Dominion's finest warships, each one capable of devastating entire cities. "Human, you have 1 hour to evacuate your pathetic colony. After that, we will demonstrate why the Krellian Dominion rules this galaxy." Marcus leaned forward slightly. "Admiral, I'm going to give you one last chance. Turn around and go home. Tell your superiors that humans are not easy prey. Save yourself a lot of trouble." "Trouble?" Zexstar's voice rose. "You think your primitive weapons can trouble us?" "Not the weapons," Marcus said quietly. "The people using them." The transmission ended, leaving the Krellian bridge in silence. Zexstar studied the tactical display again. The human ships were spreading out in what looked like a defensive formation, but it was unlike anything in the Dominion's military textbooks. "Begin the attack," he commanded. The first wave of Krellian fighters swept toward the human positions, expecting to scatter the defending ships like leaves in a storm. Instead, they flew into a carefully prepared trap. The humans had turned the asteroid belt around their world into a weapons platform. Chunks of rock suddenly exploded outward, propelled by mining charges. The debris cloud appeared chaotic, but it was precisely calculated to disrupt the Krellian attack formations. "Sir," Major Thek called out, "we're losing ships. The humans are using the asteroids as weapons." Zexstar watched in growing amazement as human vessels darted between the floating rocks, using them as cover while launching hit-and-run attacks on his fighters. These weren't military maneuvers he recognized, but they were devastatingly effective. Captain Marcus Chun stood in the command center buried deep within Kepler 442b's largest asteroid. Around him, men and women who had been miners, engineers, and farmers just days ago worked with the precision of seasoned warriors. "Beta Squadron, target the cruiser on the left flank," he ordered. "Remember, hit the engines first. We want them crippled, not destroyed." Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the colony's chief scientist, looked up from her console. "Marcus, their main battle group is moving to flanking positions. They're trying to surround us." "Let them," Marcus replied. "The more spread out they are, the easier it is to pick them off." Sarah shook her head in amazement. 3 months ago, she had been studying planetary geology. Now she was coordinating one of the most unusual military campaigns in human history. I still can't believe this is working. These are civilian ships fighting a professional military. That's exactly why it's working, Marcus said. They expect us to fight like a military. Instead, we're fighting like humans. The battle raged for hours. The Krellians discovered that human cargo haulers were actually floating bombs designed to ram into enemy ships and detonate. Mining vessels launched clouds of smart dust that interfered with Krellian sensors and communications. Even the colony's passenger shuttles had been converted into deadly weapons. Admiral Zexstar stood amid the chaos of his bridge, watching his orderly battle plan crumble. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "These are not military tactics." "No, sir," Major Thek agreed. "But they're working. We've lost 60 ships, and they're still fighting. Impossible. They're primitives with civilian equipment." "Sir," Lieutenant Crix interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the human commander." Marcus Chun's face appeared on the screen again. This time, there was a slight smile on his lips. "Admiral, I hope you're beginning to understand. This is how humans fight. We don't have your fancy military academies or your rigid battle formations. But we have something you don't. What's that?" Zexstar snarled. "Imagination." As if to prove his point, a group of human ships suddenly appeared behind the Krellian formation. They had been hiding in the planet's shadow, using the gravitational field to mask their approach. "Sir," Major Thek called out, "they're targeting our command ships." The surprise attack was devastating. The humans didn't try to destroy the Krellian vessels entirely. Instead, they used precise strikes to disable weapon systems, engines, and communication arrays. Within minutes, half of Zexstar's fleet was helpless. "All ships, fall back to defensive positions," the Admiral ordered. "Regroup at the outer marker." But the humans didn't let them retreat easily. They harassed the Krellian ships all the way to the edge of the system, using guerrilla tactics that left the professional military officers completely baffled. Hours later, Admiral Zexstar stood in his private quarters, staring at the casualty. Reports: he had lost nearly a third of his fleet to a force of converted civilian ships. It was humiliating. A soft chime announced a visitor. Major Thek entered, carrying a data pad with a worried expression. "Sir, we've captured several human prisoners during the battle. Their statements are disturbing." "What do you mean?" "They keep mentioning something called the primary fleet. They claim that what we fought today were just colonial defense forces." Zexstar's blood ran cold. "That's impossible. This was their main defensive force." "Sir, I've been analyzing the captured human communications. They repeatedly reference something called sector command and core fleet elements. They also mention that reinforcements are en route." "Reinforcements? How many ships could these primitives possibly have?" Major Thek hesitated. "According to the prisoners, sir, the colonial defense forces are primarily made up of civilians with minimal training. They're not even considered part of the official human military." "Then who are the official human military?" "That's what worries me, sir. The prisoners laugh when we ask about their military strength. They say we haven't seen anything yet." Zexstar walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. In the distance, he could see the lights of the human colony, still intact despite his massive attack. For the first time in his career, he felt uncertain. "Sir?" Lieutenant Crix's voice came over the intercom. "We're detecting multiple hyperspace signatures, approaching from the direction of human space." "How many ships?" "Unknown, sir. But it's a large formation, much larger than what we encountered today." Zexstar closed his eyes. If the humans he had fought today were just civilian volunteers, what would their real military be like? He was beginning to suspect that the Krellian Dominion had made a terrible mistake. In the command center on Kepler 442b, Captain Marcus Chun was reading similar reports. Dr. Sarah Mitchell stood beside him, her face glowing with relief. "The 7th Fleet has arrived," she said. "Admiral Rodriguez sends her compliments and asks if we need any assistance." Marcus smiled. "Tell the Admiral that we've got everything under control here. The Krellians are learning their first lesson about fighting humans." "What lesson is that?" "Never underestimate what ordinary people can do when they're fighting for their homes." Outside, the stars began to shift as massive ships dropped out of hyperspace. The real human fleet was arriving, and the Krellians were about to discover that their worst nightmare was just beginning. Revelation Supreme Commander Vorth sat in the highest chamber of the Krellian command station, his massive form hunched over intelligence reports that grew more disturbing with each page. The 6-armed leader of the Krellian Dominion had conquered half the galaxy through calculated brutality and overwhelming force. But the reports from the human frontier made no sense. "Explain this to me again," he rumbled, his voice echoing through the chamber. Admiral Zextar's fleet of 200 ships was defeated by mining equipment and cargo haulers? Intelligence Director Kesh shifted nervously. "Sir, the humans used unconventional tactics. They turned their entire star system into a weapon. Our forces were unprepared for such." Creativity? Vorth's mandibles clicked dangerously. "They lost a third of their fleet to creativity?" "Sir, if I may," interrupted Chief Analyst Vexty, "the human communications we intercepted suggest something more troubling. They repeatedly mentioned that their main fleet was still approaching." Vorth's attention sharpened. "What main fleet?" "Our intelligence reports indicated that humans were a minor species with limited resources." "That's what we believed, sir. But the prisoners we captured tell a different story." In the detention levels of the command station, Captain Elena Vasquez sat calmly in her cell. The human officer had been captured during the battle at Kepler 442b, and the Krellians had been trying to extract information from her for days. So far, she had told them nothing useful. The cell door opened, and Supreme Commander Vorth entered, followed by 2 guards. Elena didn't stand or show any sign of fear. She simply looked at the massive alien leader with steady brown eyes. "I am Supreme Commander Vorth," he announced. "You will answer my questions. On Captain Elena Vasquez, Colonial Defense Force, serial number 7749 Delta Alpha." "I do not care about your designation," Vorth snarled. "I want to know about your military strength. How many ships do you have?" Elena smiled. "Is that what you're worried about? A number of ships. Your colony should have been destroyed in hours. Instead, you held off a professional military force with converted civilian vessels. This is impossible unless you have hidden capabilities." "Hidden capabilities?" Elena laughed. "Commander, you don't understand humans at all, do you?" Vorth leaned forward, his massive frame looming over her. "Enlighten me. You attacked a mining colony and expected it to surrender without a fight. You assumed that because we don't have your military traditions, we would be easy prey. You were wrong. Your weapons were primitive. Your ships were converted civilian craft. By all military doctrine, you should have been annihilated." Elena nodded thoughtfully. "That's your problem. Right there. Military doctrine. You fight the same way against everyone, don't you? The same formations, the same tactics, the same assumptions. These methods have conquered 47 star systems. Against species that fight like you do," Elena said. "But humans aren't. Like other species, we adapt, we improvise. We use whatever we have at hand." Vorth's frustration grew. "What is your total fleet strength?" "I couldn't tell you even if I wanted to. I'm Colonial Defense Force, not regular military." "What is the difference?" Alana's smile widened. "The difference, Commander, is that you haven't met the regular military yet." At that moment, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Vorth's communication device activated, and Director Kesh's voice filled the cell. "Sir, urgent priority message from our deep space sensors. We're detecting massive energy signatures from human space. Multiple fleets, sir. Hundreds of ships." Vorth's face went pale. "Hundreds? Sir, the numbers are still climbing. Our sensors are detecting what appears to be a major military formation heading directly for the Kepler system." Elena settled back in her chair. "Ah, that would be the 7th Fleet. Admiral Rodriguez doesn't like it when people attack her colonies." "The 7th Fleet?" Vorth's voice was barely a whisper. "One of 12 active battle fleets, last I checked. Though they might have expanded since I left for my assignment." 12 battle fleets? That's just the regular military. Doesn't include the colonial defense forces, the sector guards, or the home fleet. Vorth stared at her in growing horror. "How many ships does your species have?" "I honestly don't know the exact number. Military classifications are above my security level. But I can tell you that every human world has its own shipyards, and we've been building for a long time." Lieutenant Commander David Park stood on the bridge of the UEF Determination, watching the Krellian command station grow larger on the view screen. The human fleet had arrived at the edge of Krellian space with overwhelming force, and now they were demanding answers. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "the Krellian Supreme Commander is requesting immediate negotiations." Admiral Rodriguez, a stern woman in her 50s, nodded. "Put him through." The view screen filled with the image of Supreme Commander Vorth. The massive alien looked older than he had just hours before, and his confident demeanor had been replaced by barely controlled panic. "I am Supreme Commander Vorth of the Krellian Dominion. We wish to discuss terms for ending hostilities." Admiral Rodriguez leaned forward. "Terms? You attacked our colony without provocation. You killed our people. What terms did you offer them?" "There was a misunderstanding. We believed the humans were a primitive species suitable for conquest. We now realize this was an error." "An error?" Rodriguez's voice was deadly quiet. "You call murdering civilians an error?" "Admiral, please. If we had known about your true military strength, we would never have acted." "Our true military strength?" Rodriguez looked puzzled. "Commander, what do you think you're looking at?" "Your battle fleet. Your main force." Rodriguez began to laugh. "This isn't our main force. This is one fleet out of 12. And we're not even the largest." Vorth's mandibles trembled. "One fleet? The 7th Fleet, to be precise. We handle border security and colonial support. The 1st through 3rd fleets are the heavy assault forces. The 4th through 6th are planetary siege specialists. The 8th through 10th are rapid response units. The 11th and 12th are classified." "How many ships?" Vorth whispered. "In the entire United Earth Fleet? Classified. But I can tell you that this fleet alone has 800 ships of the line, plus support vessels, fighters, and special operations craft. Asterisk, asterisk." David Park watched the Krellian leader's face as the implications sank in. The humans he had fought at Kepler 442b were civilian volunteers with converted equipment. The fleet he faced now was a single military unit. And there were 11 more, just like it, plus whatever classified forces existed beyond that. "Sir," David said quietly to Admiral Rodriguez, "I'm receiving reports from our intelligence teams. The Krellians have been operating under the assumption that humanity is a small, isolated species." "How small?" Rodriguez asked. "Their intelligence. Estimates put our total population at around 50 million individuals across maybe a dozen worlds." Rodriguez almost choked. 50 million? We have that many people just on Luna Station. Should I correct their estimates? Absolutely. Commander Vorth, I think there's been a significant intelligence failure on your part. Would you like to know the actual human population? Vorth nodded weakly. Approximately 400 billion individuals across 847 worlds with major industrial centers on another 300 planets and moons. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Vorth found his voice. 400 billion? That's just humans, Rodriguez added. The United Earth Alliance includes 17 other species who have chosen to join us. The total population of our alliance is over 1 trillion individuals. Impossible, Vorth breathed. Very possible. And every one of those worlds has defensive installations, shipyards, and military personnel. The colonial defense forces that bloodied your nose at. Kepler? They're weekend warriors. Part-time soldiers. Citizens who train a few hours a week in case someone like you shows up. David Park stepped forward. Sir, perhaps we should explain our military structure to avoid future misunderstandings. Rodriguez nodded. Good idea. Commander Vorth, the forces you encountered were Level 1 defenders, local militias, and colonial guards. If they had been overwhelmed, Level 2 would have responded. Regional defense forces with proper military equipment. If they had failed, Level 3 would have arrived. Professional military units like this fleet. And if this fleet fails? Vorth asked, though he clearly didn't want to know the answer. Level 4. The home fleet. Ships the size of small moons. Weapons that can crack planets. And enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. Vorth's communication device activated. Sir, we're detecting additional human fleets moving throughout the galaxy. They appear to be taking positions around all major Krullian installations. Rodriguez smiled coldly. Those would be the other 11 fleets. Just in case you were thinking of trying this again somewhere else. What do you want? Vorth asked, his voice hollow. Complete withdrawal from human space. Reparations for the damages you've caused. And a formal apology to the families of the civilians you killed. And if we refuse, then you'll discover what our Level 4 forces can do. And, trust me, Commander, you don't want that. Back in her cell, Elena Vasquez could hear the alarms and panicked voices throughout the station. The door opened, and Supreme Commander Vorth entered alone, his massive form slumped in defeat. Your people, he said quietly, they're not like anyone we've encountered before. No, Elena agreed. We're not. We have conquered 47 star systems. We thought we understood warfare. You understand your kind of warfare. But humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've learned to adapt, to overcome, to find ways to win, even when everything seems hopeless. Vorth sat heavily, in the chair across from her. What happens now? Now? Now you learn that humans can be reasonable. We don't want to conquer your empire. We just want to be left alone. Give us that, and we'll give you peace. And if someone else attacks us, if we face another enemy, Helena considered this, then maybe you'll learn that humans can also be very good allies. But that's a choice you'll have to make. The massive alien looked at her with something approaching respect. Your species is dangerous. Only when provoked, Elena replied. But yes, we are dangerous. The question is, do you want us as enemies or friends? As the Krullian fleet began its withdrawal from human space, Supreme Commander Vorth understood that his empire had encountered something unprecedented. A species that fought not with overwhelming force or advanced technology, but with creativity, adaptability, and an unshakable determination to protect their own. The galaxy had just learned a new lesson about humanity, and they would never forget it. Asterisk.